How's it going? This is James Dillon, and these are my man boobs. So, third video, figured I'd start out with talk a little bit about the putative book. I don't know if I just used that word correctly. I'm very pretentious. The theoretical book that I would like to write, and I have written many pages that have gotten lost all over the place over the past couple of years. It's a horrible, horrible mess, because I, myself, am a horrible, horrible mess, which is why I eat too much Chinese food, and good lord, that looks terrible. I guess y'all are just gonna feast your fucking eyes. Yeah, well. Almighty. Oh, Lord. Well, anyway. Book is, talk about the setting a little bit. I'd like to avoid going into what I would consider spoilers, which would be too much about the main characters or their plot lines. I know the definition of spoiler that people have varies somewhat. For example, my wife likes to spoil my videos by making a shitload of noise after assuring me she would not. And then she laughs because she's got a black heart.
I love you.
Good lord. It's okay, cat. Y'all are watching this shit? I'm glad. Yeah, just, anyway. Book. Das Buch. Das Boot. Das Boot. Das Boot. Remember that movie? Remember that? You know, that's, shit, I should write a fucking Marvel movie at this fucking point. Remember this? Remember that? Oh, hey. Remember when this thing happened? There was a thing that was, the 90s. Anyway. So, I listened to a very interesting lecture series called Like Everything about the Etruscans, the mysterious Etruscans, and I forgot the name of the guy who did it, but I'll put that in the description. I sent him an email, and he said he does these in the dark at night under a blanket, so it's good to know somebody listened to them, enjoy them. He talks about the Etruscan society, very interesting. There's a lot that we can learn about it from archaeology. For example, people like to say that the Etruscans had equal rights for men and women, and that's, by our modern viewpoint, that wouldn't be the case. However, they were certainly much more, women were much more involved in the public sphere in Etruscan society than they were in Greek or Roman society. The Romans modeled a lot of high society after what the Greeks did. Possibly, in part because the Greeks had such a overwhelmingly dominant culture throughout the Mediterranean. That was somewhat true in Etruria as well. Their Greek pottery was so widespread in Etruscan tombs that red-figured pottery was once known as Etruscan pottery. And it was actually made in Corinth or Athens. I may be talking out of my ass. Either Corinth or Athens. It's been a very long time since I took that class. I could look it up, but I don't. Because this is what you're getting. Raw, unfiltered bullshit out of the mouth of a bullshitter. At least I'm back to not having to do that for a living. Anyway. None of you know what that means, and it doesn't matter, because the point of this is not oversharing. This is not... Eggaday. You like it when I sigh? I'm gonna stop. Anyway. Etruria. Etruscans. Tuscans. Interesting people. They, seem to be a much less disciplined people than the Romans. That may have been what allowed the Romans to overcome the... there were also certainly economic factors. Rome was in a very very good spot for a city. And we know that Rome was in a good spot for a city because it's still a really big city today. Athens wasn't really in that great of a spot. And it's interesting that it lived as long as it did. I think Athens was very defensible in the ancient times, and it was certainly in a very rich part of Greece, which a rich part of Greece is like saying, a really swanky part of Detroit. But for Greece, it was one of the richer parts, Attica, and neighboring Boeotia, which is also one of the richer parts of Greece. But as Athens actually had Piraeus, a separate town. It was that far from the sea. Rome also had a port town, Ostia. So I may be not making a very good point there. Seems the Tiber was navigable, though. Even though if you look at the Tiber today, it's not that big of a river. It's not impressive. 10 out of 0. I am not impressed. Ah, shit, I just divided by 0, didn't I? Time for some Reddit jokes from 2012. Oh, yes. Who wants to see an awkward penguin? Oh, watch out. I got a fist baby. Is it? I think it was called Victory Kid or something. Not fist baby. Please, if you don't know what I'm talking about, do not Google fist baby. Fuck me in the ass. What was I talking about? Holy God. Good God. Look like a Cabbage Patch Kid when I smile. Maybe. No, is that what the... No, Cabbage Patch Kids look like they have Down syndrome. Anyway. Is that intentional, do you think? Is it supposed to, make Down kids feel... It's Down syndrome, right? I'm going to resist the urge to look that up. I'm really bad at that. I think there was a Down syndrome guy at the supermarket today. Right on the cash register. It's interesting how that Down syndrome doesn't affect everybody to the same extent. He wasn't, drooling on his shoes or anything, but he had kind of that cast on his face and little bit different voice. I'm not going to try to imitate it because I will get kicked off YouTube. And honestly, I wouldn't blame myself for that one because it's not very tasteful. But I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's interesting how there's this idea that Down syndrome or it's Down syndrome, right? So y'all are screaming at me, but you have your fucking phones. Now I'm right. Now I'm the king of all the knowledge. Oh, king. Yes, that's right. Kings were a little bit different sort of thing in Etruria. We think of kings when, I'm saying we. I'm including you. I'm being inclusive. What I was going to say is in Western modern society, kingship is largely modeled on the kings that came before the liberal democracies really started to take over. So we think of kings as dynastic. We think of kings as having some sort of either an inheritance, like a personal ownership of a country, or we think of kings as in the model of Charlemagne, given their what's the right word? Given their power, not the power. What's the... Anyway, but having their dignity, their dignitas, I should say, bestowed on them by a religious figure, the Pope in the case of Western Europe, where the church would say, oh, so-and-so is a king because I say so. And that was very important in 1066. William claimed to have papal backing. I think he did. I'm not really a big medieval guy, but, that's sort of our model of kingship. We think of the king needs an heir because the king will have a child, and he hopes it's a male child because then he will succeed. But if it's a female child, and maybe she can succeed, blah, 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 blah. All that shit, that's medieval Europe. That is 2,000 years in the future. This is a completely different world. In Etruria, in the 8th to the 3rd century BC, kings were not the same sort of thing. The kings of Etruria were very similar to the kings of Rome. And that's, of course, telling because 3 of the 7 kings of Rome were themselves Tuscan, Etrurians. Etruscans. There's so many words for them. You know that their demonym was Razna or Rasena. So, which I'm using that in the book. I like Rasna. That's fun. It's kind of a fun word, and it doesn't. If I called them the Etruscans, that's ugh. But Rasna, I think that's usable, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe I need to change it a little more. I am not making any sense because you don't know what I'm talking about. But I'll work it back. Take that, wind it back. Little Chris gonna anyway. Mid-2000s hip-hop is the end of the world. And don't correct me that that's not hip-hop. If it was a black guy singing it, it was hip-hop. God. What was I talking about? I don't know. I went off on some racially charged joke, and now I can't remember what I was talking. Oh, yes, kings in Etruria. Lucumo, which Livy tells us Lucumo was the Etrurian name for Lucius Tarquinius Priscus. Lucius Tarquinius Tarquini, he was from Lucumo of Tarquinia. Tarquinia is an important, or was, I should say, was an important city, one of the Etruscan League. There were 12 cities in the Etruscan League. 12, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there were more than 12 cities in Etruria, obviously. But there were 12 cities in that particular league. I believe there was a northern league as well and a southern league that were separate. But these were sort of not even necessarily the most powerful cities, but they had a certain auctoritas. They had a certain prestige about them. And they worked together. These 12 cities, it was clearly defined. They were the Etruscan League. They had one place that they met, which was I don't remember the name of the place off the top of my head. Treveteri, maybe? Anyway, they would all meet together and make group decisions for all of Etruria, and it required consensus, and there was nobody that was directly in charge. There was no sort of, president of the Senate even. It was just 12 cities, had 12 representatives, and usually those representatives would either be the king, what we call the king, which is, oh, here she comes again. The representatives would be either the king or a representative of the king. And again, I'm using the word king, which is probably a misnomer, but the kings of Etruria, I mean, it's always frustrating to say, I've had people say, that they weren't pharaohs of Egypt until the New Kingdom. For that, they were the kings of Egypt, which is strange to me because king is an English word, and they didn't speak English, so what does it really matter? I think you're just kind of assigning a certain word and saying that means king. Maybe I'm crazy. I had a point. Oh, yes, the 12 cities that would work together to make decisions for mutual defense, trade, religious matters, games. Games were almost always religious in significance. Hello, dog. Games were always not always big games. Sort of like the Olympic Games, which were a religious event in Greece. I am just babbling. What was I talking about? I don't fucking know. That should be the real name of this series, is what was I talking about? I don't know. That's the subtitles. What was I talking about? I don't know. Oh, yeah. How the kings of Etruria were not like the kings that we think of today. it seems that they were elected, not necessarily by the people in the way that we think of the one man, one vote. That's actually a really recent idea, one man, one vote. And, I mean, obviously, if you watch the news, it didn't take hold in South Africa until maybe the 90s, and then even then, it's going away. But they're Dutch, so, I mean, you've seen Austin Powers. Fuck them. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch. One of these days, I'm going to just steal some Adderall, and I will be able to say a straight line. It will make total sense, and everybody will applaud me, and the people will acclaim me as king of Rome, and then the Senate will confirm me. That was what I was trying to get to, was that when the king died, you didn't have the king is dead, long live the king, his son is now the king. When the king died, they had a temporary king, somebody who would take the religious aspects of kingship, which were in many ways more important sometimes than the political. Kings were not always that important. It seems that the kings of Rome became pretty important. The 7 kings of Rome, were they all real guys? Maybe not. Because it seems like they sure had really long reigns. And if we are to believe that Rome was founded somewhere around 753 BC, it stands to reason that there were some other kings in the middle, and maybe these guys, Numa Pompilius might have been a model of the priest king. Now she's going to take a shower. Do you see what I deal with here? All the noise. I hope it's worth all the noise. Anyway. Priest kings. What about them? What do you like about them? Nothing. They suck. Fuck them. Yeah, I agree, dog. Can y'all hear this? Y'all can hear me, right? That's all. Just listen to the sound of my voice. Everything will be all right, as long as you stay calm and listen to me. Priest kings. That makes you think of something else, though. That makes you think of sort of a. I shouldn't say that. Should make you think. It could make someone think of a religious government. See, they had religious government. They absolutely had religious government, but it wasn't a religious government in the sort of a theocracy. Oh, Senor Zero! Theocracy, that's the word I'm looking for. It was not a theocracy in the sense that you may be thinking, because to them everything was a religious matter. How they aligned their houses, which my house is aligned to due north as well, because I'm a fucking nerd. But that was a religious matter, and the most auspicious place in the house is the northeast corner, which is where my bedroom is. Because I'm smart, and I have things to do with my life, like sit outside at night and see where the North Star is and put stakes up so that I can get my house aligned to the north. Yes, I'm a fucking nerd. It's the truth. Keenan says that I look like not Tolbert. That's that new Goatling. What's that guy's name? What's the name of the guy that looks like the guy that I said that I'm the guy that the guy said I look like and sound like? What is his name? Some fucking some video game guy. He's apparently he's a Nazi too, so we got that in common. What was his name? That's gonna bother me now. Big fat guy. He's got like a little beard right here, like little chin beard. He looks like this. Who do I look like? Huh? Did I say something about immigrants that made you kick me off your video game show on YouTube? Huh? That's all I know about him. And, God, what is his name? I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, I like certain video games, but I've never been able to care about them. I used to watch Zero Punctuation all the time. Like, anytime one came out, I watched it, and I have no idea why. Because I'm watching a review for something I would never watch. Now, granted, I do watch Red Letter Media all the time, which is why I was making the joke about the 90s earlier, but, Red Letter Media is really genuinely entertaining. Otherwise, I don't think that Zero Punctuation is really all that great. But, it's strange things that people do when they're nerds. Hopeless, sad little nerds. With no life, no phone, no motor car, not a single luxury. That's going to be the name of this video. Is how do you spell that? Yeah, I used to watch Zero Punctuation. I used to watch Bob the Builder, Bob the Video Builder, Bob the Movie Bob, not Bob the Builder. That was that guy that Dero did. He sang on the video that I saw once. Dero's the guy from Oomph. He's the lead singer. That does anyone you listen to Oomph? Does it matter? JonTron, that's the name of that fucking A. JonTron. Somebody said I look like JonTron. Yeah, John. Is it John? John? It's hard to say. Everything's hard to say. To be honest, that's a cute dog. Y'all can't see her, but she. Yeah, I'll show you. Look, it's dog. She's cute. Or is that my foot? What ifs? Either you saw a dog or you saw my foot. I don't know which. You saw what a fucking mess my house is. It's because I live here. Back when I was over the road, I'd come home and I'd say, "Ooh, lives in this spick and span place." But I'm here all day now. Yeah, I fuck it up. Fucking dirty boots everywhere, dirty clothes everywhere. I'm gonna make it look back like it did before she moved in. I might keep this. Just because, it sets off the video. Makes it look like a thing. Kind of like Lindy Beige with his, name dropping now. Is it name dropping? I've never met the guy. I don't know him. I'm just a fan of him. Lindy Beige, he does that. He has all these photographs that he's had for years of, like, frogs and a guy in armor, and then there's, like, other frogs. I don't know. I can't really say that I've ever looked at them. They're mostly green. Just like this shirt, which is just showing off my fucking cleavage right now. Good lord. Ate Pizza Hut today. Why? I don't know. It's not even good. Fuck Pizza Hut. Unless you want to sponsor me, in which case I fucking love you. And I think you're the best. And I recommend all children eat all the Pizza Hut every day. What am I at? Like 20? I'm not wearing my glasses, and I'm too lazy to put in my contacts. Now, I'm not wearing my glasses. It's not out of some sort of embarrassment, but you see all that reflection? That's weird. And I don't really know what to do about that, other than just take them off. And then I squint. So, I could go put my contacts in, but that would require me to get off my ass. I've actually talked a little bit about the writing, right? Yeah. Something. I don't know. It's getting up there. I don't think anybody wants to watch an hour-long video for, bye. Maybe not.